Hello. We wanted to
Right?
continue our conversation. We were just so getting into it. We wanted to continue on and deep dive more outside of the
On a
Enneagram
roll. Mhm.
about kind of our TCK experiences, how that ties into some of our childhood wounds. And outside of all of that, some trauma, lovely, sprinkle it in there.
It's time. It's time.
It's time. But before we do that, hi, my name is Yehna.
Hi, I'm Jessie, and welcome to our fourth episode of
At
At
the
the
table.
Table.
Lovely. Oh my goodness, crazy. Whew, we're speeding it up. Just
We
kidding.
are just getting it done, but I think we are wanting to do this like right after the Enneagram episode because this topic too is huge. I mean, it's the main reason it's where our heart lies, right? Both of our
Mhm.
hearts. We're so passionate about being a part of the TCK culture and giving back to it. So we are diving into just our experiences as TCKs, what it even means to be a TCK. But Yana, you can start us off on like a brief definition because I hope, non-TCK people are a part of this journey
Please.
because
Yes.
it's not just, for
No.
TCKs. It's
Yeah.
for just you're just listening to two girls figuring out their life and they both happen to be TCKs. So maybe you
Yes.
can learn more about it.
Right.
But Yana, what is a TCK?
Yes. TCK is acronym. That's a word.
Mhm.
Yes, acronym for third culture kid. I'm sorry, today was a long day. My brain is fogged up. Third culture kid, which essentially kind of means we were born in one place, but we're kind of already a different culture that we've adapted from our parents or our guardians. And then we then mash that into a new culture, a third culture. It also can mean like you were born in one place, citizen of another, and then went to a whole third location, and you were adapted to that. Yes, that is the definition of what a TCK is.
So then with that definition, what kind of stereotypes do you feel like have been put on you or like in general, what do you hear
Hmm.
people talking about when they hear about TCKs?
Yes. I think honestly, even myself and my siblings kind of fall into stereotyping, which I'm really learning to not reaffirm that. But it's like immediately when they're like, oh, they're a TCK, we're like, oh, trauma.
They got issues,
They're like either
commitment issues.
exactly like broken, messed up, like they're overall like these unstable children that can't get themselves together, or they're like a ball of just resentment. And of course a stereotype is a stereotype for a reason, but I think where we come where we are at fault, uh TCKs and non-TCKs all, is that we associate that as someone's identity,
Mhm.
instead of saying, oh, that's a season in their life. And I think that causes so much confusion and turmoil within a person. And so I really want to break that and say,
Mhm.
this stereotype might be true for a person, but it's not because that's who they are, but it's
That's
because
not your story.
that is not their story. It's maybe a chapter of a grander story for their life. And because we make that our narrative, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm this broken person.
Mm.
And sorry, that was not the point I wanted to go. Like, we truly believe we're this unstable, broken person that we don't deserve anything. Or we even go as far as to say like, I hate everyone because they don't understand me. And we just like add to that.
I mean, yeah, and honestly, if you don't resonate with this and you're a TCK, that's totally fine. I think, I mean, obviously, we're speaking from our own experiences, and
Right.
a lot of our peers are TCKs,
Mm.
but it just seems like there's just this constant repeat of I don't belong. And so that comes with a lot of like identity crisis, that comes a lot of just baggage that you carry from one place to another. But then on the bright side, we have some strengths. We are globally minded. We are multicultural. We
Yes.
maybe can speak another language.
Yeah.
I mean, we are able to respect other people's differences.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A
and I
little
think
more
there's,
open to
yeah,
learn
opening,
about
yeah,
others.
to trying different cultures or trying different ways of thinking. And I mean, at the end of the day, I am so proud to be like I feel so fortunate and blessed to have that third culture experience.
Mm,
Really. But I understand that with that comes a lot of baggage that I need to be aware of and I need to deal with. I'm
right.
about to sneeze. You can go.
Bless you. But yeah, there's just so much to unpack. And
Yeah.
again, I want a disclaimer, like Jessie said, this is what we will be sharing is you might not relate at all as a TCK or non-TCK. It's just we wanted to just start a story sharing somewhere about
Start a dialogue. Yeah.
start a dialogue about our experiences and saying, guys, we don't have to be embarrassed or ashamed of it. And no, neither should we be like these prideful people that think everyone's below us. No, sir. But overall, at least for me personally, I did not like being a TCK. It was just everything that came with it felt so negative. The responsibility, the stereotypes, the expectation and the lack of support, I guess. It's almost like we should have had it all figured out
Right.
because we have this grand, amazing experience. And then, so of course, now having unpacked that, I am so grateful for, and I would never trade that being a TCQ for anything. But it definitely took going through those valleys and seasons to get to this point. And so overall, I just wanted to create this dialogue. This is a big reason we started this podcast, because we wanted to start a dialogue about these things and saying, guys, you're not weird to have thought this way, or you're not alone in this process of figuring things out. We might be figuring very different things out, but it's okay to want to do that.
Especially as we become adults and like that third culture life isn't chosen for us anymore.
Right.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what I think we really, Yana and I feel like I could speak for the both of us. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what really struck us was like, oh, dad and mom aren't telling us that we're going to move in a year. Like usually it's mapped out for us. We don't have a
Right.
choice. But now as adults, we're out of college, we're making our own life decisions and we're like, okay, I guess I'll stay in one place for the rest of my life, question mark. And then now that I've chosen that, I'm like, wait, why do I want to move? So
Right.
like, I guess, yeah, we're just trying to, a, as we're processing, understand more about ourselves,
Right.
really. And even just hearing your side and your experience, Yana, like that opens up a different perspective of what it means to be a
Mm-hmm.
TCK, because we do have very different
Right.
TCK stories. But
Right.
I wanted to dive into that. Yana, do you want to explain? Because we did touch on enneagram in our last episode, and we said we would talk about the core,
The childhood wounds.
Yes, because that
Yes.
plays a big part of why Yana became a 9 and why I became a 2. Like, so can you kind of explain? Wait, actually, I don't know. Should we tackle mine first or should we tackle yours? Either way, it's a rant.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Just kidding. Do you feel comfortable sharing first? I don't want to put
I don't mind.
Okay.
No, yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot then.
Go ahead with my childhood wound. Just I'm ready to expose myself.
Ready to expose the world. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Use my phone. Okay. Okay, so childhood wound is kind of the indirect or direct message we've heard growing up, and which kind of then we take that as our core being. And so our lives, we're trying to navigate how to better define ourselves. But for a 2, this indirect or directly said message is that it's not okay to have your own needs. And so while a child, they long and strive to hear one particular message from their parents and other authority figures, but unfortunately they never fully felt they heard this message. This message is still something they long to hear from others, is that you are wanted and loved. Stop. Ouch. So
yeah,
drops the bomb.
Spill.
Okay, keep going. Like, sorry.
Man.
Yeah, it's like I said, it might not be to that dramatic extent, or it could be more. I don't know, but we're just trying to navigate how to better redirect that message. Again, like I said before, direct that message that we're not constantly in this war to find this message from our neighbor next door, but vertically upwards. And so
No, for sure. Really.
So I know this is kind of putting you in the deep end. With that being said, do you feel that this message was said to you directly or indirectly?
Yeah, the reason why it's stabbing me is because it hits the core, right? Like, yeah. But yeah, I guess I can start us off with sharing my TCK experience. And feel free to chime in, Yehna, if you have any comments or questions about like something I'm explaining. Right. But so to give you guys context, I am ethnically Japanese. We are like 5th, 6th generation Japanese American. I am very proud to be Japanese American because I feel like there's not a lot of Japanese people out there in the world. Really. Not a lot, really.
You're my second person. Actually, that's not true.
Really?
Close relationship.
Okay, I feel honored. That's what everyone has been saying is like, oh, you're the first Japanese person I've met. But anyway, I'm very proud to be Japanese. And what's ironic is that, so my dad grew up as a missionary kid as well, but I grew up as a missionary kid to Japan. So again, we're Americans. That's what people don't get is literally I might look Asian, but I could be more American than my Caucasian friend over there, where their parents, came from Norway or something. Right. Like we're American, but it's confusing because we chose to serve in our own country of origin. So I grew up moving back and forth from Japan to the Chicago area. Because that's where my family is from and that's where our home church is. But I grew up moving, around 7 to 8 times throughout my life up until I went to college. I went to 6 different schools. So constantly just moving throughout my childhood, which is a pretty typical, I would say, TCK experience. But I just remember growing up as a child, I was in constant survival mode. Like as an 8-year-old, I would talk myself through my first day of school at a new school. And I'd be like, okay, like you're going to make this many friends. You're going to read the room and figure out how you can best fit in. Because if you don't have friends, you're not going to have a great experience. And then you're going to be miserable in the place you are until you move to the next place. So I was constantly just strategizing. I had to my fear as a child was to be alone or to not fit in. And so I constantly I shape-shifted myself so that I could make the most friends so I wouldn't feel lonely, or I would, take on the interests of whoever, in Japan, it was like some kind of J-pop group. In the States, it was Justin Bieber. Like I just had to constantly mold myself to fit in. But then I never had an opinion. I almost feel like I was a 9 growing up. I never knew who I was. I was always someone else. I was always someone else. And I was always trying to be what someone wanted me to be. And so that was my experience growing up. And so, it's really sad looking back because yes, I didn't hate my life. I really enjoyed like the transitions, like even though it was nerve-wracking, I think accepted that was my life and that I had no other choice. So, okay, if I have no other choice, I'm going to do something about it. Like I'm the doer, right? I can't mope around.
Difference.
I got no time. Yeah, I know. The twos and the nines, but I got no time to sit around and complain about this. I gotta get my butt up, figure out how to way to survive. And I gotta do because what am I gonna do? Be miserable the whole time? That's like not my way of living. So again, that was me constantly. I mean, so if some of you might have known me from back in the day, like you might have seen me as more reserved or quiet or like just nice,
Right.
because I was nice. I was quiet
Yeah.
because I was just constantly reading the room and trying to fit in. So that was me. And it's sad because my parents,
Mm.
that this was their calling and there's nothing they can do about it. And I loved that they were missionaries. Like I loved my missionary life growing up. And it was never necessarily like hard in
Right.
terms of like, oh, look at me, like I'm having to move constantly. And that's not how I took it. But I think there was no acknowledgement
Mm.
for it's okay to be sad that you're leaving a place. It's
Right.
okay that you feel like you don't want to leave because that's normal.
Yeah, like they almost normalized the lifestyle that you were living in, that it almost made you feel weird that you wanted to process something.
Exactly. And I mean, that's them trying to just like, make the
Yeah.
most to be positive, to like feed into that, this is our life and we just got to make the most out of it. Right. And I
Right.
agree with them. But at the same time, I'm dealing with the consequences of like, why is it
Mm-hmm.
so easy for me to throw away relationships? Why is it so easy for me to have short term, shallow relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why I'm craving for that depth, yet I don't know. Like,
It's
it's this
almost like hard to
contrast.
get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So all
It's
my life, like, yeah, you go.
sorry, can I add, like,
No.
it almost feels like this we were missing that piece of lament and
Yes.
grieving.
Yes.
I don't know. So sorry. It just
No,
feels
it's real.
so missing. And
Yeah.
it's almost I'm I love that you loved it, but it's also like what happened to being okay with the grief of
Yeah.
losing relation, not losing, but losing.
Well, I
Oh,
numbed that side of me, right? There's no time for me to think about that. And so now I'm dealing with the consequences of like, oh, like
mm,
friendships come and go, and I'm okay with that. And why is that not a problem? Because it should be a problem.
yeah,
Or even like now that I am actually staying in one place, I'm running into like friendship conflicts and I'm like, "Oh, I've always been the peaceful one. Like everyone
right.
likes me." And now I'm like, "Wait, why am I so bad at friendships? Why am I such a bad friend?" And it's like, "No, Jess, you're not a bad friend necessarily. You're there long enough. You're there to stick around for when the bumps come. You're
Yeah,
always gone by the time the bumps might come."
right,
And so now that I'm running into bumps, I'm like, what's going on? Like,
right.
why is friendship so
CPR.
complicated? Like, why can't I just leave and then everything will
Mm,
disappear? No, I'm
right.
having to sit through this. And it's been so much more difficult than most people
Mm,
because I'm not used to sticking around long enough
right.
to deal with friendship conflicts, to
Mm,
get over that and still be friends. Like, that's not my lifestyle. And so,
right.
any comments, any questions to that? I'm not sure if I summarized that well, but I think that's
No,
interesting.
you did. I mean, also, you really can't summarize
Yeah.
25 years of life, girlfriend. And also, we're still
Yeah,
processing so much of it. So it
we
makes
are.
sense. First of all, thank you for sharing. And also want to celebrate the fact that, we are able to recognize these things. And I don't want to ever like take away the actual joy of having been a TCK and your experience of going different places, experiencing life
Right,
and
right.
people, like getting to know people. But to focus a little somewhere else, I'm like, it definitely pains me to see that we've normalized numbing
Oh,
that
yeah.
out. And I think, granted, I really want to acknowledge the intention of like your parents probably wanting you to have really amazing experience and not getting
Mhm.
stuck there. But I think we didn't have the maturity, the capacity to be able to balance that out.
100%.
Yeah.
No, for
Would you
sure. And
agree?
I would agree. And I think that's what they were telling themselves too as they were navigating being
Right.
missionaries,
No,
right?
right.
But wait, okay, I'm sorry. I forgot to talk about one more thing though, about this whole identity crisis, because
Yes.
again, to touch on the being Japanese, I growing up, I never felt like I belonged anywhere. And that's obviously a lot of TCK stories, but especially for me, I was hard on myself because I'm in a country where I look like everyone, but my name's different, but I can speak Japanese, but yet there's no connection there. And then even in the States, I can blend in. I don't have an accent. Like my name is
Right.
Jessie, but because I grew up in another place, there's something wasn't clicking.
Right.
Yeah. And so and that's why it was such a relief to go to a high school that had a lot of international kids, or even
Mm,
college, and having this TCK international group and feeling like, oh, there's so many of me in one
right.
place that
Yeah.
I feel so safe. I feel so seen. That's why this community has my heart, because
Mm,
growing up, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. And to know
right.
that there's another person that feels the same way was very
Mm,
comforting.
I agree.
Yeah. So,
It's true.
any last comments before we move on to you and your story, Anna? Because I feel like we have similarities in the whole
Right.
two country thing, but like very different moving situations.
Yes. Again, I want to say there's so much to unpack, and it's a continual story.
Right.
I want to commend you for even bringing it up and being willing to share, because I know it's hard. It's like we make it look like it's casual, and we're like, it helps that it's just us two on the screen, but this is really a vulnerable thing, and so
Oh my gosh. If I had to share this in front of a group of people, I would not even get through the first sentence. Like I would sob my eyes out. Seriously. Like
right.
that's how oh, I don't want to expose myself. I don't want
Right.
people listening to me.
Yeah, because there's so much. Okay, before moving on, but like there's so many layers, because it's like part of us don't want to ever like want to portray this as a negative experience, but we also are
Right.
learning to navigate how to acknowledge the painful parts of this story. And it's
Yeah.
like when we're like, we don't want to put the blame on anyone, but I don't know how to do that without, but I want to mention that we were, it's like, oof. Anyway, I'm still navigating that, and it's hard to get through. Anyway, but
No, I appreciate that. But
yes.
Yana, do you want to share um your childhood wound as a 9, and then how that correlates with who you are and what this unique missionary kid experience has done to you?
Again, I'm gonna cheat. Looking at the 9. So again, the indirect or the direct message that we've got, and the message of a 9 is it is not okay to assert yourself. Basically, calm down and shut up. Just kidding.
Yikes.
To continue reading, it says, while a child, they longed and strived to hear one particular message from their parents or other authority figures, but unfortunately, they never fully felt they heard it. This message is still something they long to hear from others, and it is your presence matters.
How does that feel as you say that to yourself?
I think now that I've because I'm learning this, I'm like hearing this a lot. But I remember when I
First heard it.
and I was like, it was weird to say the least. I think because I didn't even know that's what was happening inside of me. I genuinely thought like something was so completely broken and missing that there was no way to rewind it back. Not to be dramatic, but I heard this message both directly and indirectly. Maybe not those words like directly, like you don't matter, not like that, but
It was implied.
yes. Or
Like
it
clearly
was,
implied.
yeah, clearly implied. And so and I want to share my story very carefully, because it can really come off like I'm blaming, and that is a part of my story because I did do that a lot. And it was not until recently I was able to reconcile a lot of those things. And I continue to learn to reconcile a lot of those things. But enough with the disclaimer. I always have to put a disclaimer because I get anxious. But like Jessie, I also was in an Asian country. Like I said in my very first episode introducing myself, I grew up in Rasan DPRK. Yes, I'll give you a
Means,
couple. Huh?
which means,
Which means yes, there's probably people listening to this who went, rewind 10 seconds. um I'm still getting used to saying that casually because it's not a casual country. It's not. And I wanted to use it the official country's name, so it feels more official. So, and I want to say this was my experience growing up. I would say this, and this was kind of the beginning of people telling me, you don't know what you're saying. They're like, buddy, I think you meant South Korea. And I'm like, I think I know my geography. I think I know where I live. That was told to me more often than not. And yes, so growing up, I had to always try to prove myself, even literally growing up. And I think as a little kid, that's all you know, because I grew up there since I was 2. It's harder to show a little bit of understanding and compassion towards people who, for me, literally felt ignorant. And that's so prideful and terrible of me to say, but at that age, I was like, really? They do not know the difference between North and South? Like they clearly know, but like for me, like the politics wasn't there. It was just my home, and it still is. For a long time, my experience, I was in one place. I was there since I was 2, and I didn't leave till I had to go to college. And so that was truly what all I knew. Of course, I traveled a lot because my dad spoke in places, and we'd have to visit our home church and all of those things. But overall, my experience was that my dad had a business, and we ran different businesses, and we had a very, very, very tiny community. Because let's be honest, who wants to live there? Nobody. So our family was tight. And until I want to say when I was 9 or 10, I didn't have friends my age. So it was all uncles and aunts. Everyone was my uncle. Everyone was my aunt. The locals there were my family. They were my older sister, older brother. They're my uncles and aunts. And so that's all I knew. And then at some point, my parents, I want to say 2012, we started a tourism company. And that's where my story begins. We then started having a lot of people come on tours because now it's low commitment. We just need to visit, sightsee, and they can leave. And as much as I wish I could say that was an amazing opportunity, it also caused a lot of unforeseen damage in my life. And it's
fair.
I get a little nervous saying that because I don't mean to say I hated it. I loved getting to know so many of those people that came in. It was very fun hearing people's stories. I had the privilege of literally just being immersed in storytelling, which I love.
And from like a completely different world than what you experienced, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And people from all over the world, like people from Singapore, people from Russia, people from Sweden, people from we had a family from Japan come. We had some random Muslim guy come in, and he was like, I wanted to travel the whole world before I died. I was like, whoa, who are you? I know, like, it was crazy. And people from Hong Kong, people from obviously America, and just the world was in front of me. And so I was so privileged with every group that came, there was always those few people that promised little Yehna Kim that they'll come back. Poor Yehna Kim, that's dumb enough to believe every single one of them, until at some point I realized they're not. And so fantasy over, and being the dramatic Yehna Kim I am, I went emo mode.
Your emo stage begins.
I didn't just take that like, oh, sad. I took it as a full-blown rejection. And I was like, wow. So it is true. People hate this place. And when I say this place, it was my home that they hated. And I'm sure it wasn't hate, but when you see a kid, unfortunately, they take this into this, and it's hard to bring it to reality. And so at some point, I started coming out to greet them a little later. Like, I wouldn't come out until it was required of me, like lunchtime. Then I would come say hi to the group. I would be the first one to leave. I sat with my mom in the kitchen, maybe, so I won't have to strike conversations. And
that's where like the relationship building became less and less for you.
Yes, yeah? I started drawing lines and building walls. And that, unfortunately, what didn't help was there were people in my family, what I call family, it's like my community, people were leaving too. And I was like, not to sound prideful, but our family is kind of like the Father Abraham. I'm like, God, when are we gonna like move on to the next generation? Because I'm ready to go. But he's like, no, you're staying there for 100 million years. It felt like to me, because I would see people come and go every 2 years. And unfortunately, being the sensitive little baby I am, I would give my all, my whole heart to them. And when they say, we're peace out, we're leaving, I'm like, it didn't make sense to me why that had to be. And so whenever I would, but then at the same time, I couldn't show that I was mad or sad at them, because it was God's will. And then when I go to churches, they're like, don't you want to come back? Why are you there? I'm like, I get so defensive because it was just a simple question. But for me, I'm like, they hate it there. They want to pick something out. And unfortunately, some people did. They wanted to find failure in this thing so that they would have our parents come back. And so being the oldest, my job was it wasn't my job, but I put it upon myself.
Yeah, you took it on. Yeah.
I took it upon myself to be like, I needed to be, my voice became everyone else's voice but my own. And at some point, whenever I wanted to share my story, it became a tool to manipulate my story and be like, oh, so you're suffering. Not what I was trying to say, because then they're going to take my words and then they're going to use it as a weapon to attack my parents. And so I'm like, ooh, must sit still and look pretty. So that was my whole life's mission. Right. And I wanted to prove to the world, my first dream was not a teacher, guys. It was because I wanted to be a doctor. And I was so passionate about it. I wanted to, and I was like so adamant that this was like a God's calling, But at some point I realized I was doing this for people. Right. I wanted to prove to them I could go to a good college. I can actually go to college. My parents didn't fail me. Homeschooling will get me to college. I'm being an NK isn't a failure. I will go to college. I'm gonna get a good job. I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna be successful in their eyes, and I'm gonna prove everyone wrong, whoever doubted my parents.
That I'm not this messed up person that y'all think I am.
Yeah, exactly. And so at some point, my dream, who I am, I don't remember it, because it was centered around everyone. I couldn't even see the blessing I had. I was so focused on who's going to screw me over and who's going to leave me next.
Yeah, you were guarded. You were jaded. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't think it was necessary to share what I wanted because I didn't know what I wanted anymore.
And you're like, even if I share, would you care enough to
Yeah.
stick around? Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
And so,
And that's a tough blow as what? Like a 10-year-old? Like that's not something that a child should be going through, this constant in and out and this inconsistency. Like you're walking on eggshells in your own home, you know?
right. And I think more than anything, I wanted peace. I wanted to just live in NK and not have to care about what people thought about the government or what people thought about being in there. And as much as I wanted to share the right news in terms of my life, at the same time, like I wanted people to just see that it's a beautiful place. Like why did I have to be the chosen one?
I mean, like
Anyway.
everyone saw it through the world's eyes. They didn't try to
Mhm.
see it through your yehna's, like your childhood, me living as a child in NK eyes. Like they
Right.
tried to see it through this complicated, what the news portrays lens, right?
And I
There's
don't
a
want to
there's
neglect
a
the reality.
yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
but at the same time, I'm like, well, like why couldn't people just like take what I said as is, like, anyway,
So
to
just a
draw
lot
it
of
back in.
being unheard, right? You're being
Yeah.
unheard.
So yeah, to draw back in, like it sounds like a very dreary childhood. I have so many great memories. Like I can name so many, but to focus more on this a little bit and to share some of my overarching TCK narrative, I think it was definitely difficult to acknowledge I had a good life until it was stripped away from me. And I did that to myself. And I was like, oh, wow, I need to not drown in other people's opinion, but actually come to terms with what hurt me and say, oh, my life was really good, not because of what other people said, but because of the life I lived and the
Right.
experience my parents allowed me to have. And so I think my biggest like desire in even starting this dialogue is if anyone is at that point or has ever been in a place where they're like, I hate my life or I hated this experience, I want to really speak that lie out. And because I truly believe my life sucked.
Yeah, I mean, you were really there until recently.
Yes.
Let's be honest,
No, like not so long ago, like a couple months ago. But it was not because of my life. It was because of what I told myself my life should be and the
Right.
expectation that people had for me, said and unsaid. And I'm not saying we shouldn't listen to people. I want to hear good wisdom, but in that there was not a lot of wisdom, but a lot of doubt, which I took it upon myself to have for myself. And so you need to flip it around and be like, oof, God wanted you there because he loved you. And for some reason, he wanted you to go through something to show that you are amazing and your life is amazing. And no one can tell you otherwise except yourself. And I mean, God.
I mean, you had to strip all of that noise out and just come back to the core of like, I want to purely just experience my life for what it was as me as a child living in NK with the beauty that it brings, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's so ironic because you never moved, yet there was so much in and out in your life, right? Whereas me, I physically moved and there was in and out in my life. But like, it's so interesting how, yeah, you can be in one place, but because of the specific location you were in, nothing was consistent, right? And
No.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so interesting how because of that, we're both, I feel like that's how we bonded. Like we're both
Right.
just so jaded. Like
Right.
we've got walls on walls on walls up because of that, and
Yep.
rightfully so, but
Right.
it's taken a long time to just redo those walls and
Mm-hmm.
to understand them even, right? And
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge them.
Acknowledge them. And I think what was the most difficult for me is that I was like, I acknowledge it and I wanted to be like, yeah, and make it an excuse to be
Yeah.
this way. But what was
Right.
so difficult, and the Enneagram really helped me, was that now that you know, let's move on. Like let's actually grow from this. And instead of being jaded and pushing everyone away and hurting people, they're not trying to leave you. They're trying to get to know you, and they're not trying to get anything out of you. They're not trying to manipulate your story. They purely want to get to know you. That's possible, Yehna Kim. It's possible. And so give them time. And I'm like, oh, but I don't want to. I don't want to. And so learning to grow from our hurt and our sinful nature.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like I can speak for the both of us in that it's just sad that our insecurities are like maybe our own hurt from the past is preventing us from developing a deeper friendship with other people. Like that's what makes me sad, is that because of my insecurities, I put on assumptions about how they are perceiving me or how they want me to be. And therefore I'm all guarded up when they maybe just want to genuinely know me, even if they might be different from me and they don't know my background. And I think more as we're becoming older and meeting people that, they don't have our background.
Right.
To really navigate through that, right? Of like, okay, this person can be a safe place. I can like let my guard down. I can be vulnerable. I can take that step to deepen relationships, to open myself up, to let myself be known, right? So just thoughts.
Yes. Look at us go. Oh man.
Yeah. I would be curious to know, like, whoever's listening, like, what has your story been and how are you navigating TCK life as an adult, or maybe as you're getting ready to graduate, or as you're getting ready to go to college? Like, in each stage of life, your background will carry on with you, right? And I don't know where you are in that process of unpacking that, but clearly Yehna and I have been doing a little bit of digging,
right. And it's true. Like I wasn't aware of this until like I didn't even know this was a thing until maybe sophomore year. And then like let it happen until senior year. And this didn't really unpack till literally this year. So guys, you are in the thick of it.
It'll be cool to look back on this. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like we kind of explained in Yehna and I's like friendship journey. But yeah, I've been in your life during those times. But again,
you were in the start of it.
Yeah, I think so, right? Because that was your sophomore year. Yeah.
Yep.
But then again, like we have been on our own waves of being ready to take this on and to unpack it. So,
basically what I'm saying is that whatever stage you're at, and if you even think about it and you're like, what? Don't panic, you're fine. It'll come in time. And I think my biggest regret in the start of it, I mean, it happened, it's fine. But if it were to happen again, I wish I was better at seeking support and guidance in the midst of that. My thing was the reason why it started sophomore year and there was like this like nothing to a dip in senior year is because I was like, what is this? And I retreated and I went, nope, that doesn't exist. And I like tried to work and was involved in every single thing except getting help. And so I was like, I'm going to help other people. Maybe that will ray the bad away. Like, And
Just keep
so,
myself busy.
yeah,
I'll forget about it.
exactly. So don't do that.
Yeah, we encourage you. Like, hopefully, this will be a start for you to reflect on your own life. And even if you're not a TCK, like, what experiences have formed me and made me who I am? And
Mhm.
what are some hurts that I am not bringing to the surface of?
Right.
And I don't know, it'd be cool to have a dialogue with you all too. But that is Yehna and I's story. Thank you
Yes.
so much for listening to it. I'm sure there's
And
many
to be
more.
continued.
Yes. To be continued. This is just the beginning.
Yes.
Yikes. Y'all are like, can
Oh,
we be
I
done now?
now
There's
it's too,
all
it's
there's
just
all
sad.
billions of. So yeah, too sad. This is too no. But we
Kidding.
appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we hope to have many more conversations like this in the future. And stay tuned to At the Table. Thank you.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.